Good morning, afternoon, or evening, 8th grade, depending on what time you're watching me. I don't know if it's morning, afternoon, evening. If you're like me, it's probably the morning. But I'm assuming most of you, it's probably during class because you like to waste your class time watching these instead of doing them at home and using the class time for the productive work. So hopefully you get to change that and you start watching these at home instead of in class. Anyways, Chapter 7, Section 5, we're going to start multiplying polynomials and monomials now. So we're going to start here in Section 5 with just a monomial times a polynomial. You'll recognize this as just something that's a little bit more complex than the distributive property. All right, an example here that you would have done in 8th grade, or 6th grade probably, 7th grade, one of those two. Distribute that 3 to get 6x minus 3. You can all do that. I know you can. I've seen you do it. We reviewed it at the beginning of the year. But what you don't know is that in that example, we had the monomial 3 multiplied with the polynomial 2x minus 1. So all you were doing was multiplying a monomial times a polynomial. Okay? We're going to distribute the monomial to each term in the polynomial. Okay? It's that simple. This is why we had to start by learning how to multiply monomials together, because if you didn't know how to do that, you wouldn't be able to do this. So I take this monomial of 6y and distribute it to all three terms. 6y times 4y squared. Then we have a 6y times a negative 9y. Then we have 6y times a 7. Okay? So 6y times 4y becomes 24y to the third. 6 times 4 gives me the 24. Y times y squared gives me the y cubed. Then I have 6y times negative 9y to get a negative 54y squared. Then I have 6y times 7 to get a positive 42y. Okay? And there's our final answer. You can see the exponents still go in descending order. 3, 2, 1. Okay? And all my like terms are combined. I have y cubed, y squared, and y. So there's nothing else that I can add or subtract together. Okay? So let's go ahead and try the next example at the bottom of your page. Negative 2x squared times the quantity 3x squared minus 7x plus 10. Take this, and again, we're going to distribute it to each term. So negative 2x squared times 3x squared. Negative 2x squared times negative 7x. And negative 2x squared times 10. Okay. So we'll take our coefficients first, multiply those to get negative 6. Then combine the exponents. X squared times x squared is x to the fourth. Next set, we have negative 2 times negative 7 to get a positive 14. And x squared times x is x cubed. And in the last term, we have negative 2 times 10 to get negative 20. And x squared follows along. Again, it goes 4, 3, 2. It's in descending order. There's no like terms. They're all different exponents. So there's nothing else to combine. Okay? So far, so good? Sounds like it. So let's check the back. Okay? A little bit more complex here. I have two different monomials times polynomials going on here. This 4 gets distributed to those two. My negative y, that's something we forgot constantly in one of the earlier chapters this year, is the negative sign in front, gets distributed to those terms. So if we start with the 4 times 3x squared and 4 times 5x. That gives me 12x squared plus 20x. Okay. On the other side, the negative y going through gives me a negative y, negative y times y squared, a negative y times negative 7y, and a negative y times 12. Negative y times y squared will be negative y cubed. Negative times a negative is a positive 7y squared. And negative y times 12 is just a negative 12y. Okay? Now I need to look. Do I have descending order? No. But the thing about math is it's kind of funky, where it's kind of arbitrary here. And I like to see x's come first and then y's, because it's kind of debatable if you want alphabetical order or degree, which one comes first. And I think most people prefer alphabetical order. So my x's go in descending order, 2, 1. Then my y's go in descending order, 3, 2, 1. Okay? So this is going to be our final answer. All right. And the last example is one that's going to be a bit tougher. Okay. Make sure you keep track of your exponents here. You have to know the difference between multiplying and adding. Okay. If you don't know how to add monomials, you better get some help, because you're going to have to do a lot of it here. If I have 8x squared y times 5x, remember I'm distributing that monomial on the outside, the 8x squared y. So the 8x squared y times our first term, 5x. Then I have 8x squared y times 2y squared. And finally, I have 8x squared y times negative 3. Okay. Coefficients first. 8 times 5 is 40. X squared times x gives me x cubed, or x to the third. And then my y tags along. There's no other y to combine it with. Then in the next part, 8 times 2 gives me a positive 16. X squared doesn't have anything to multiply it with, so it stays. Y times y squared becomes y cubed. And in the last section, 8 times negative 3 is a negative 24. My x squared doesn't have anybody, and my y doesn't have anybody. All alone. Okay? So there's our final answer. And now you know how to multiply a monomial times a polynomial. Well, I guess you already knew. But now you know a little bit more. How to do ones that are a little tougher than just simple 6th grade distributive property stuff. So our last section is going to be 7.6, which is multiplying a polynomial and a polynomial. And that's where you get to learn the term FOIL, and we're going to see a couple different methods of ways to do that. Okay? So I will see you next time. Bye.